Missing something? Jack, I don't think I left something. Sorry. What do we care? Just interrupt. No problem. All right, so here's the type of, the kind of the makeup of local governments. Here's more importantly the spending. So this is something that you guys will see the rest of your life when you actually buy a house and start, unless some of you own a house already, but paying property taxes. Education's the biggie, police, government administration, some hospitals, and then these are the types of things that are all funded by property taxes for the most part. That is the primary funding source. And then what you'll also have a lot of times is a local option sales tax. So that'll be another thing that'll be on the agenda someday. Usually, I don't know if it's limited by statute or not, but a lot of times it can be up to like a 1% increase. So if the state sales tax is 6%, you might face 1% in your municipality, an extra bump. And then that money goes towards the local stuff. And sometimes it can be for a temporary period of time, like we want to build a new school. We need a new school, we don't have enough money. So for the next 5 years, we're going to have a 1% bump in the sales tax. So that's another technique that they do. Chelsea?
What exactly what is he exactly referring to with like municipalities and like compared to local government? Like is that just in like
yes.
Like what
So
exactly is meant by municipalities compared to local government?
Is that like
so
versus city?
you can have county. So at the county level.
Would be like the local.
So yeah, there's lots of different types of local governments. These would be cities.
Okay.
So this one is inside this one.
Okay. I was thinking of local as cities, and then I was like,
Yep, you got it. So it can be at other various levels within even in districts, possibly in bigger towns. All right, so local public goods. So here's our general thing we saw in the previous chapter too: non-rival, non-excludable. One of the things that's unique here is the benefits. Do they stay confined, or are people able to either take advantage of benefits that live outside? So if you're a neighboring city, you can kind of free ride off of the local government, or are there some, should we be doing this, or should we look for a cost-sharing arrangement? So that's one little thing that's a little different than at our federal level. We kind of think non-rival, non-excludable, national defense. We all kind of share in it. All right. We saw this one with the park. So this is an example that kind of ties back to what chapter that was. Remember we had Hiram, Miriam, and Lois, and they had different varying degrees of desire for the size of the park. And I think I drew this picture for you guys, but we didn't actually do it in the chapter that time. So we talked about the social benefit curve being the sum of the individual benefits. So for a 6-acre park, Lois has 20 units of satisfaction, 28 here, 48 here, grand total of 96 units of satisfaction for the community. But that's not what we get when we look at a voting scheme. So if the cost of the park is 60 in total, the efficient size of the park would be 16. How do we pay for the 60? Taxation, and how? What would be a way we can do it? Property, sales. The general form we had was just a head tax, right? So we just divide it evenly. Again, these are just kind of basic assumptions. But if we've got 60 bucks worth of cost, we got 3 people in society, 20 apiece, right? So we split the tax evenly because that would be fair to do, right? Or whatever we come up with. And so the result we get is each individual person, it comes twofold. We get a park, but we also have to pay for the park. And so if we're splitting that tax evenly, how are things going to shake out? And that's where we got to the median voter. If we start looking at different size parks being proposed, the median's going to drive the show, is what we learned in that chapter. So this kind of ties back to that, adding a little bit more with the social benefit.
The vertical axis is measuring dollars for cost?
Yes, and dollars for benefit. So we've converted, Hiram gets $48 worth of benefit from a 6-acre park.
Right.
So it's kind of like utility, but we've converted it into willingness to pay.
So with the tax per person, we're getting a larger part in order to tax them?
So
We're substituting that? Does that make sense?
the efficient park size would be this one if we had perfect information.
Yeah.
But then we say, okay, well, a park's going to run 60. How are we going to pay for it with 20? Let's have a vote on a small park or a big park, and now the median voter is going to end up calling the shots.
So realistically, because the majority rule is going to probably be about 12 acres.
Yeah, right.
So it ends up not being the perfect amount, is what you're saying. It just ends up being.
That's right. So we're modeling the inefficiency of majority rule.
Got it.
That because of the median voter theory, we'd expect the median person wants 12, the median person's going to get 12.
We never get to 16.
We never get to 16. So it's kind of the inefficiency of the median voting. Because that's the mechanism we're putting in place to handle the public good issue. It's like, oh, let's do majority rule. That would be, one way to do it. And we all enjoy the park because of the non-rivalry. We all get to enjoy the park the same, even though we have maybe a different willingness to pay because of our different preferences. All right. What if Miriam's demand decreases? What happens if it decreases? Do we get smaller size? Are we moving towards the efficient size or away? Away,
Well,
right?
technically, if her demand's decreasing, wouldn't social demand in general decrease? So it would kind of be.
Yeah, but it's fractional.
Correct, you're right. That could be part of it, so that it would be smaller. But I don't know if they. We could probably rig it so that they were adjusting the same.
She wouldn't adjust it.
But if Miriam's preferences go this way, then are we efficient? So I should golf club here while I got the opportunity.
Social benefits still increase.
Yeah. So the point is, the median person, we don't have any reasonable expectation that we're going to get the efficient solution, right? It's completely driven by the median voter. It's really independent of what might be efficient. All right, so comment on the Tebow model, which we also talked about before, of just people reallocating themselves into the municipalities that suit them. We're going to jump into this 16-2 problem.
And you said the rest of the problems were 13 and 16 are going to be good.
Yes, 13 and 16. Tuesday.
So you'll be in the office all day.
Well, you can drop them off. Oh, as far as getting them back to you? I would have, if you drop them off, I will look and check and put them back so that we can for sure get them that day by whenever. I will be around all day, so I'll just be kind of in and out. Okay, so we got Hattie hates parks. Consider an example shown in 16.1 where Lois leaves town and is replaced by Hattie the hater, whose marginal benefit of park acreage is negative at $16 per acre. Use a graph like the one in 16.1 to show the socially efficient park size. The efficient park size is blank acres.
So I assume this graph is 16.1.
Yes, that is, yeah, I guess that didn't show up. That was the one we just got done with. So the first step here is to figure out what is going on. You can think of it graphically, and then you can think of it, you might need to think of it a couple different ways. So Lois leaves town. This is Lois. Lois leaves town, and now we got a hater.
-16. So she can do below.
That's just your slope that
Oh, that's just
Is there potential for negative marks and negative after?
And I wouldn't bother going in and completely redrawing anything. Just think about the marginal social, what changes in terms of social benefit and or social cost. And then we got a hater moving to town.
Would her intercept be the same then?
So she doesn't want more. She can't have a negative one. She doesn't want it.
Right? She's kind of saying you'd have to pay me to have.
So essentially, it's
Now she still lives there.
No idea. What would her intercept?
Yeah, what's our intersection?
It'd be at 0, 0.
How do you know though? It doesn't say.
Because
Oh, it's
as
straight
there's
to
no
negative
bar, then she
16,
gets no
it's just
benefit.
You can't have a negative mark, so you just talk
And it says she has no benefit, so it would have to be that here, and it would basically end up being
So that's like that, like that. 0 plus.
Negative 16 per acre.
0 plus. 12 plus 28. It's like a. So what's it? Area is.
So it'd be 10 acres.
Hearing is getting voted. So must this get 12?
Russ, is it 10?
I see what you guys are saying with the intercept.
You need to know what intercept.
Well, yeah,
That's 0, 0.
or something else, or it has to be kind of modified. So here's what they were evaluating it at 6 acres. But once again, this key is a little off because they have the answers being 60, 48, plus 28, and then the other person is at negative 16, giving an answer of 60.
But
That
right
would
now
be a
the
negative
answer
16
is-
at 6 acres because
And this is the social benefit.
Right now, the social benefit at 6 acres would be 28. Because of the negative 96 and the positive
it'd be 16 bucks an acre, and that's 6 acres.
So they're coming up with a marginal benefit or a social benefit of 48 plus
hers-
28
hers is
minus
just completely
16.
horizontal.
Wouldn't it be 16 times 6 since it's
That's
6 acres?
yeah, I think because the way it's worded, yeah, that's how it says per acre.
That's why I got the.
So at
social
6,
benefit
I would
being
agree with
28.
you.
It's 6 times negative 16 is, so we're going to go with the intercept of 0 because she negative marks. I know it doesn't say that there's an
It'd
intercept.
be negative 20 because they're quantity.
If they're trying to.
At per acre because it's 48 at 6.
So we're going with it being 16 at 6 acres or negative
So
96?
in order to make their answer right, what would we need to be? You know what? It's just negative 16.
At 6 acres.
Independent of the acreage, I guess, would work, right?
So when Michael
If we
said
drop
that
off the
was
per
on-
acre, if we drop off the per acre, she's just a hater, and she just hates parks, and it's flat at negative 16.
matter how many.
That works as far as this answer key goes. So I'll edit that. It is not correct. This particular form would not be on the test for sure.
For this.
Yes. All right.
So it's 48 plus 48 minus 16.
So
Yeah.
60 is the bit. Oh, that's
That makes things really convenient.
for 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all you're gonna need to change on your, and why don't you guys change this on here? I'll put it up here. So this is the little edit you can make. -16 regardless of the size of the park, and that gets us where they intended to go. Okay, let's help Max out with 6.
Finding the 60.
Well, let's combine these numbers somehow.
Oh,
So
I'm relatively close. I just don't know what the intercept for the MBH, whoever H is.
H is here.
30.
So their intercept, their slope is
At 6 acres.
28 over 22.
No.
Yeah.
For
I don't
H,
know, like,
Yeah.
it's 40.
I don't know necessarily how I found that. I just,
Yeah, oh no,
you are a
20.
genius. No,
Down 20.
And,
I'm sorry. I was like, yes. Yeah, that's right.
So what is,
This is where marginal social cost is.
can I use somebody's calculator real quick?
Oh my god, where's my calculator?
Yeah,
Oh, here it is.
I forgot my calculator this week too. I was kind of.
You have to find the social benefit at every single. So the efficient one would be 6 acres. It's like marginal cost, marginal benefit.
So what do we get here? 40.
Wouldn't you add 16? Instead of subtracting it?
Yes. There. Thank you. I was not quite getting the math out, but I was just not ruling out.
Am I wrong? I'm not wrong. Yeah, 56 minus 16, or 28 plus 14 minus 16.
That's 76 minus 16 is 60, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So 48 plus
28 minus 16.
Yeah.
You have 2 for this.
So it's
No, I have.
efficient at.
That's 6.
Marginal benefit at $20 per home for
Yeah, 1 second.
tax is going to be higher for area water department as well.
I got
So,
5.76, so that's close enough to 6 for me.
What are you getting that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what'd you do?
Because no, the intercept for Hiram or whatever is,
Because you were kind of putting a full equation into it.
yeah.
So with this one, with the discrete numbers that we got, I think this is the sum of the two needed to be 76. We've got 6, 12, 16.
Oh, that's a lot easier.
Yeah. Okay. So
That makes sense. It's much easier.
all right. So predict the outcome of pairwise elections between different park sizes. 0 versus 12, 12 versus 28.
I don't know.
Well, Hattie's definitely gonna be a boat for a smaller one. Like,
Hattie would be on the small side. I think you're
So
right.
are we
The
going
hater
with
is going to be no.
So are we going to be on the $20 tax per person again? We're going to do the head tax.
Yes.
So
And is there supposed to be a
For
break
now.
on the lines?
Part D, we look at the different.
what if they
possibilities.
all,
okay, so then
like, since their slopes are decreasing, wouldn't they all look small?
Zero
if
is-
you at the intercept of 20
How do you want,
compared to 6.
how do you want the first one? Top left.
Yeah, top.
Oh, so there'd be 2 boats for the smaller one and 1 boat for the bigger one?
But there,
No, there should be 2 votes for the bigger one.
yeah, so
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
12. Yeah.
112, yes.
So,
Because if you're Hiram, you'd like to have even something bigger.
Oh, 0 versus 12.
Yeah, 0 versus
I
12.
thought it was 0 through
So
12.
pairwise election of
Mario,
up or down.
Dan here.
Yep.
How do you hear it?
So we go for the bigger with 0 versus 12.
What's
So
the end
Hattie
or
doesn't
something?
matter, is what we're saying.
Hattie doesn't Maddie.
What is the
How do you
M
need
person
some,
thing?
get some kids?
What?
M, what's their name?
Well, this says Mary, but it was, I think it was Miriam. But it was
I have neighbors like that
That'll work.
everywhere I live.
So 12 versus.
So what about 12 versus 28?
Hattie and Mary and
Right.
So then I started fishing up the song.
So it's that median voter, whatever the.
It's back to the median voter, yeah.
And the majority rule is if she's hit hard, always the
So all we really did from this picture, from the result we had before, is we took Lois and made her different, which then didn't affect the median voter. So that's why we got the same result. It's a kind of a different way of thinking about if we eliminate somebody out of the picture, but they're still in the picture for voting, but if we shift this person around, if Hiram all of a sudden becomes a really park lover is the other way to do it, right? If preferences change so that Hiram's a super park lover, doesn't matter. We still get the same result no matter what of the median voter.
So
All right, so we end up with 12 acres,
12.
Which is larger.
which is larger than 6, right? So the optimal amount from social benefit, social cost was 6. We end up with an inefficiently large park at
Oh, so we're not comparing it to 16?
12. No, 16's out. This is that's what we tweaked. 16 was from the last example. So we eliminated Lois, which then changed our 16. If you put in Hattie the hater. All right. So this last part. Is everybody okay up to this point? Sure.
Yeah.
So the Lindahl tax has people paying tax according to their marginal benefit. So if we have 6, we have, let me, yeah, what's going to happen here? We'll generate
Hattie
unanimous
gets paid.
support for the socially efficient park size if Hiram pays.
Hiram would pay 28.
All right, so Hiram pays 28.
No.
Oh, wait, no, it's per acre.
I don't like that.
Here
So
it is 48.
it would be like 4.5 per acre.
Yes, on a per acre.
Do you want the answer in per acre? That's
No, you can. It's
It's probably like our-
you know, that's part of what they did here is they have these on a 28. These are like in absolute terms, which doesn't.
I thought that was per acre on the
That's what I mean. That's not what they did here. So let's just pay 28 for the 6 acres rather than. So in other words, to answer your question, don't worry about the per acre thing.
Okay. Marion pays 80.
So what's the problem with that type of setup, though?
They don't want this one.
What are some issues in reality if we
side.
have?
Nobody's gonna be happy when they find out somebody else is paying $28 for tax and they're paying $48.
Okay, good.
Especially since like the one that's paying the highest tax wants a bigger park, but they're stuck with this
Well,
And if we take a survey and we ask, well, what are you willing to pay? What are people going to tend to do? Understate that or overstate it? Understate it, right? So that's the free rider problem with public goods. So that's one of the things that we tackle. Go ahead,
I would
Max.
say Hattie's not paying anything, so how can you exclude her from using the park if she was to go?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, and so we might have a lot of Hatties all of a sudden,
Exactly.
right? Underestimating what they're willing to pay. So one of the things that they think is an estimate of that is the whole back to the property value business. So do richer people, are they the heroes? People with higher property values, right? So this is part justification, which might be lousy in some cases, but part justification of taxing people according to property values. That the higher valued people pay more for the public good than what the lower valued people, even though everybody in Ottawa gets to go run to Forest Park and use it, right? But really, if the majority of the cost is funded through property values, then that's a mechanism to try to approximate that. Now, if the rich person is humble and lives in a very small house and has I guess in Kansas this doesn't work, has a real big car, I was going to say, but in Kansas you get taxed on your cars too, which is completely weird for me, because we didn't do that in Iowa. So you got a small car, but you have lots of trips and you got homes in other places or whatever. In other words, it wouldn't necessarily approximate that value. Okay, so that's the Lindahl argument to it. All right. And in order to be efficient, Hattie would have to receive a payment. Yeah, it would have to be paid $16 out of that arrangement. So that's another nut that's kind of hard
And
to
she
crack.
could build a park of her own.
And she would send in a letter saying, I'm actually.
Well, I was almost going to bring that up, Michael, since you did. When I shoved Hiram way out here, unusual case, but you do see it happen in local places, is that if you have a person with a high enough willingness to pay,
Just do it.
they'll just do it on their own. So even though nobody individually, so if we let this market go, so the traditional story here is nobody individually, whether it's Hiram, Marion, or Lois, there's no market at 60, right? So this market's never going to happen unless there's a sharing arrangement of some sort. Because here's the equilibrium point, these cross over here, right? So there's no market. But if all of a sudden Hiram hits the jackpot and his curve is up here, he all by himself would buy a park. Potentially have incentive to buy a park, right? And maybe it's too costly for him to put up fences, but if he doesn't care and it's the value of a park that's open to the community, then they do. So we see this happen a lot, right? We have the Goppert Community Center in Ottawa. Those people, again, it might have been for other purposes, not for their own gym, but imagine they were really into working out and they didn't think that they liked the other facilities that were in Ottawa. So they're like, I'm going to build a gym and do it myself. What's that?
That was a lot of government.
Yeah, and then private partner, private public partnerships.
Now you know the cost to go there.
Yeah.
It's free for the longest time.
Yep, they had it. They jacked it up. I know.
I haven't been since.
And that I haven't been there since either. I ran around the track in the wintertime. I don't need to. I need to have to do it that bad.
So wait, would that be? I know this sounds weird, but I was saying to him, would that be like the Michael Jackson parks? I mean, like he built Neverland because he felt like making his own.
Right, he felt like it, but in the Neverland example, he's not allowing other people in, except by invitation. But yeah, it is kind of a Michael Jackson.
Maybe he had other incentives, we don't know.
All right, flip it over. Start with this figure 16.4. This is kind of thinking in a different way about the median voter in a democracy and candidates coming up. So Penny proposes a police budget of $4 and Buck proposes an $8 budget. So these are two candidates running for office, and that's their platforms that they're running on. The election will result in a tie according to median voter with the way they got this stacked. So here we're not looking at it with with the graphs, we just got this bar graph to say,
Will you be in class in your office at 2?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell them.
So we have individual voters that have 6 people want it to be $10, 12 people want it to be $9. So that's what this graph is saying here. And if Penny runs on a budget of 4 and 8, the vote's going to be split. Okay, so what do politicians tend to do? Oh, well, if I bump mine up from 4 to 5, I win. But then Buck's thinking the same thing. If I move my vote from 8 to 7, I win, and it's split again. And so they play to the median voter. And so we end up getting this 6, even though that might not be society's efficient level. So it's kind of a different way of looking at the problem. Okay, questions on that setup? So then what this problem does is kind of takes a different tweak at it. All right, so suppose citizens abstain from voting if the best candidate has a budget position that is more than $2 from the citizen's preferred budget. In other words, a citizen votes only if the gap is less than or equal to $2.
So that means
Okay.
that if the difference between Buck and Penny's more than $2, the citizens won't vote.
Yes. On your second page, if you want to rip it off, it might be easier. I provided you a little matrix to get you guys thinking. This is basically question A. If you want to write right on your sheet, A, B, C, and D. A, B, C, and D. And so you can kind of keep track of the votes. Here's the deal. If it's a tie, then they split the vote. So if there's 30 people, give each person 15. That's kind of just the assumption that we're making, because it's kind of a coin flip. So their expected number of votes would be half of the number of voters that are out there.
The people who would have originally voted for Penny to still vote for Penny then?
No, they're strictly going by their voting rule of either going with it. The only thing we're tweaking is the gap. So let's do the first couple together here. So Penny's at 6, Buck's at 6. They're playing to the median voter. But now we've got these people abstaining. So are people with $2 preferences going to vote? No. People with $3 preferences going to vote? No. People with $4 preferences going to vote?
Yes.
Yes. Who are they going for?
Do they split?
Why would they go to Penny?
You just said that it didn't matter.
How is Penny closest?
Because Penny would prefer, Penny would prefer to be small.
I'm confused.
I understand. They both have the same outcome, but look as Penny being the conservative candidate.
No, I asked that. You said that they split the vote.
We split it.
It should be 9 and 9.
Yeah. So we're missing an assumption.
Is the assumption that people that were originally loyal to their...
So
Split it every dollar.
instead of me thinking about everything, let's work together and see if we can justify this answer.
Well, that makes
Well,
sense
are
to
we
me.
using this graph?
Because this is what John was saying. So under what assumptions would that?
Yeah, if you read this,
They're going with the original.
if you read this, then it explains that Penny would get the votes at $4.
Yeah,
The
no, but
explanation below the graph.
I was just saying the question that I asked earlier, he said that they just split it no matter what if they're all the same, so that's why I was confused.
So and they are splitting at the 6,
Sure.
Yeah.
at the 4 and the 8. I think what they screwed up is this. This should just be 4 and 8. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was 4 and 8, it would go.
If it was 4 and 8, then they would have, well,
Then it would be
high.
what's up there.
Then it's what's up there.
Yeah.
So should we
They
change
would
it?
also include the 2 and the 3 then.
Yeah, so just change my little thing here to 4.
It's not quite the same with this assumption because of the whole $2 thing and splitting out motors. 4 and 8 would
Well,
be
at 6 it splits it though.
No, but with 4
Oh.
and 8, you would be including the 2 and the 3 and the 9 and the 10.
Right. Yeah.
So it still doesn't work
So that's
out.
still so they're playing to the median, but their preferences are still the same.
That-
What's your spin on it, Adam? You seem like you got this author figured out. What do you think?
I don't know.
No, that's okay.
I just don't think it would
I
be.
mean,
I don't think that they're.
it's-
I don't think
it's-
it's wrong in the 6 and 6.
It's like political parties where
Yeah.
Penny is the conservative person, and she's saying, "Hey, vote for me, but we're going to compromise." And Buck's like, "Hey, I'm going to go all out." So people are still being loyal to their.
Yeah, with just
Yeah. Yeah, we could spin it that way possibly.
Let's say it's basically an American show. Okay.
9 and 9.
So how should
You have
we?
your diehards on both sides, and then you have a majority in the middle that I guess are going to split.
Yeah, so it's kind of left. So you want to go left side, right side
Yes.
as we tweak this one here.
Strong side. Strong. Sorry, at least you got that reference out.
I got it. Don't worry.
So let's see. Suppose a person abstains from voting as the best candidate has a budget position for $2. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's kind of like we're in the voter world. So Penny's the low leaning. So low leaning Penny. And high buck. Okay. All right. So what did you guys come up with for the next one?
0 for 2, 0 for 3. Penny gets 18 for 4. She gets
Buck is 0.
24 for 5. She gets 30 at 6. They split the 24 at 7. And then Buck gets all the rest.
Buck gets the rest on the high buck.
No,
Yeah.
Buck, they split at 6 and 5.
No, they split at 7.
They split at 6 because of Buck. Only 2 of
I
them,
got that.
right? So he's at 8.
But you split the
He's
middle.
gonna go- they're gonna go-
So like he's at, she's
With
at
the-
6.
Oh, so
they're gonna go to the
It's
closer
just the
one.
whole thing over there. So 7 they split. She still gets all of it.
They should get all at 6 because
Yeah.
So it's 12 and 12 on side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 8 is all the Buck.
Yeah.
The
It's
rest
over
is all
9
the time.
So what does the
John,
vote
have you
come
seen
out?
7 being 12 and 12.
yeah, it's fine. Although I mean, I'd be
So
willing, I'd be willing to
84.
listen to the argument that says that
No, it's
the rest of the 7 should go with the higher leading one because that's what they do.
But the way that the book is.
But if you want to go and then just split it 12.
So what'd you come up with the vote? Just the total.
84 and 48.
84 and 48.
So that first, everything up there on the first assumption is wrong. Just like it should be split evenly.
Well,
Other side.
so what you guys did with the 9s, you actually put, you shifted, does it end up shaking out to be the same if you do it that way?
What,
you
splitting
would.
each one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. So you just did a 9 and a 9?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's what
a
I
9,
did.
9, and a 9, 9.
Okay.
I think that's probably the way to keep that one.
It's just because
Yeah,
they're both
but-
at 6 in the middle, and so at every level they're just gonna split equally with the assumption.
So let's work through that one because I want to make sure we're clear on this. So they did end up running on the platform of playing to the median voter. They were at 6. And with the $2 being $2 away, they're even. So that's why they're getting the 9 and the 9. So they're splitting that. And as we get closer, then they,
Oh, so all the ones in the middle, they split.
You're asking.
That one would be 12 and
You're
12.
asking.
so that would be 12 and 12, so they'd split the vote all the way through.
Ray, that you are asking if it's going for voters to be rational.
Right, right. I mean, I kind of like the story you were telling before of still sticking to their guns, but yeah, this would split the vote.
Just not like normal.
The answer still means a tie at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But I think the way they've got it portrayed. All right, so then Buck bumps up to 8, and we see that he loses. Okay, so what happens when preferences change? So next part. For budgets from 3 to 9, there are 10 voters for each preferred budget level. For the two extremes, 2 and 10, there are 12 voters at each budget. The median budget remains the same at 6. So now you need to change your distribution.
Is the key for B, right?
Yes.
Yes.
B, yes. Yeah, that's right. Because Max here, they bumped up to an 8 platform, so they split the 12.
That's what that's what I originally got for A,
Okay.
but yeah.
All right, so what does your new distribution? Let's think about that one for a little bit.
It's with you.
Pretty flat.
Yeah, you can either redraw or you kind of write it on top of here if you want, however you want to do it. So from 3 to 9, there are 10 voters for each preferred budget level.
John, you got a 25 and 25?
Sure.
And 35 and 37?
Also, yes.
Ah, sí. Gracias.
But for a second, I thought
You
we were
can
checking.
even share answers in English, so that's okay.
I was just like, did we just go to international?
I just wanted to see what you would do.
Pretend that I understood Spanish and remembered what it was.
Yeah. So you can't, each candidate also positions meeting budget. So did they keep the previous one? So he's at 8, she's at 4.
For the first one, they wrote it.
Above that 6.
Yeah. Or 6.
So
Oh,
they split it.
Yeah, so we're still following the same rule. The key here did the same thing it did before. Like you say, I still kind of like the working in the idea that there'd have to be another assumption to the model, but it kind of it's a,
It seems logical just based on human
yeah,
nature.
yeah.
Proving
That they have their, but there'd have to be an extra dimension to it.
So she did it 6.
Would you like to add
Okay.
in?
Did you guys get it all?
Some both 170 and 130 on the other side.
she only get within 240, and she doesn't get 200.
So she doesn't get the 2 and 3. So it changes the number of people that are in and out of the picture because we threw 12 voters on the extremes.
I really that's 3 and 9.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you've got a whole new set of answers.
You trying to hide the answers from us right now, Russ?
Yeah, I don't have to though. I was before. I guess this is something I'll email out to you. You got another problem to do later, but you'll have the answer anyway. But that was the. Ooh, there we go. The hanging out.
Oh, never mind.
Oop, it's slowly creeping. Look at that through the magic.
I'm just curious on whether or not we are torn by indifference.
Torn by
And the title
indifference.
itself, torn by indifference. I'm like, are we really torn by indifference?
Okay, I want to bring up one last thing from this chapter that's something you guys have seen multiple times. There's a little section that talks about natural monopoly because local municipalities, like here in Ottawa, tend to provide electric and water and sewer and some of those basics. Who remembers what the principle is? In fact, it's one of our axioms, I believe, of why that might be desirable to have one producer of water.
Prices is the lowest.
So average cost is doing what? Economies of scale. Good. You got it. So average costs look like this over the production amount. And so if we draw in the long run average cost, long run marginal cost, again, this is the principles. Oops, I screwed it up. It's the normal marginal cost curve. A marginal cost curve associated with this. Remember, they're kind of J-shaped, and then they'll cut through the minimum, but that would be your marginal cost. And then there's a demand for utilities and a marginal revenue. A private firm would maximize profits by producing the quantity where the revenue generated by the last unit is equal to the cost. So a private company is going to charge, or it's going to produce that amount and charge the highest price possible. Society's efficient quantity is where marginal social cost equals marginal benefit. So allocatively efficient quantities here. Can the government come in and regulate the private company to produce that amount? What's going on at that quantity? If the government said, you just need to produce this amount, and then I'll let you do it.
So yeah, just trying to see that. That's
What's going on here? There was something special at the allocatively efficient quantity for a private firm. Remember?
Got
zero long run economic profit.
Worse.
And it said they'd be operating at a loss.
They'd be operating at a loss, yeah. So there's actually a loss at this quantity.
oh, for the monopoly though.
Yeah. Well, this is at the allocated. So
Yeah.
could the government force a private company to produce this amount? The answer is no, because there is a price, or an average cost. My average total cost of production
Is greater than what I can charge.
is greater than what the charge. Yeah, what consumers would pay for that amount.
So, highest we could get would be at the point where the demand curve intersects the long run average cost, which that doesn't even really work because they can shift it or whatever.
Yeah, so the idea of a regulated monopoly might be to put them here, and we enforce a zero profit criteria. But the case in the book, if the city chooses to do it, they can run at a loss. Why? Taxes. They can force payment through other means, right? Even if it might be inefficient. So this loss here is now a fiscal Deficit. Good. And so it's just a little twist on the story that we saw before, that the city might choose to provide the utility and restrict all entry. The problem with that is similar to what we might find with the other situation of letting the firm operate at zero profits. Do the city employees have any incentive to watch out for costs? Nope. Are they going to watch the bottom line and think that they're going to take a pay cut once in a while to do it? Nope. 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 So we might start to see costs increasing because there's nothing to keep them in check. You don't have any competition or anything to keep them in check. And so the fiscal deficit grows. Government spending grows. Taxes grow. Again, it kind of leads towards growth of government is the conclusion that would come out with. Potentially.
Taxes technically be in check because people vote with their feet on it.
Yes, and that's a good point. So then we're falling back to maybe majority rule, which has its problems as we learn, but there at least be maybe some checks there with new politicians coming into office and new mayors or new, whatever, to actually, if this was grossly inefficient, you might get to a point where you can only take so much. Okay, that is the last bit I wanted to say. We've got the non-idea form evaluations for you guys. For small classes that are less than 10, we don't do the whole bubble sheet, so this one's quite a bit shorter. And there is
Oh wait, never mind.
there is room for comments on there. So
you have a course number?
yes,
I have it right here.
you got it.
Yeah.
It's eco. It's on my envelope. What is it?
30463.
30463. Eco.
This
And
is spatial.
my name is Nakala. Just in case you guys don't have the spelling. And could I have a volunteer to take these down to the administration? All right. Okay. So just, I'll be outside. And we're done.
So no more class? Till final?
Yep. Except for seeing me on. I have to be outside this boundary, otherwise I could get sued.
Can we circle in the middle?
What?
The middle's just green.
Yeah, I know, that's the dumb thing.
How many times is this class canceled?
No, we had once.
I guess we did have once.
We had once.
We have.
1 to 2.
Yeah, correct.
How many did I like to skip? Once. Always give excellent assistance in understanding your course material. Lectures, not after. Written assignments, not after. Textbooks reading.
It's been a fun semester, guys. Great run we had.
So last time we, yeah. Wait, do we have a study though?
I'm sure if we really email it, we'll probably give it. Just like the PowerPoints.
It's that folder up there.
Remember, if you don't
don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. That you know what your mom's told you?
That's what I'm doing.
Wait. That's definitely not how evaluations work.
Just
Just kidding.
just
If so,
I'm
then
writing
you have to
with
work
my
how
circles.
on grades.
Yeah. I'm writing with my circles. That's
Yeah.
The sad thing is I'm closer to a B in this class than I was.
I had an 8 on my 4.
D rounds down.
I even have, if I got an A on my 4,
You gotta see it.
I had another one to win break. I was like, 4 games. I was so close. He put his ball in it.
Grades, dude.
Whatever happened to that one?
So bad.
Looks like they are.
Oh, gosh, I can see everybody.
It's gonna be the first day.